Supermarket in suburban New York, customers are stocking up on beverages. From bottled waters to sodas, fruit blends to teas to energy drinks. According to the Beverage Marketing Corporation, Americans spent more than $73 billion and consumed more than 18 billion gallons of these drinks in 2001. That's 66 gallons for every man, woman, and child. And even with all these choices, there's always a new taste, new brand, or new trend poised to be the new buzz of the beverage world. Once upon a time, however, it was just Coke or Pepsi, two soda giants going head-to-head for market share. Then, in the late 1980s, a new category sprang to life, called New Age or alternative beverages.
Alternative being beverages that are alternative to traditional carbonated soft drinks, the traditional Pepsis and Cokes of the world.
According to CEO Jack Belcito, the first New Age David to truly challenge the soda Goliaths was Snapple.
When it was on its original rise up in the late 80s, early 90s, it had obviously set the business a little on its side because it was the first brand to come through and really break through the industry and do things differently. It did not look like a soft drink. It didn't act like a soft drink in the consumer's mind. It also didn't act like that way for the industry.
But before Snapple could shake up the industry, it was a small-time company selling juices mostly to New Yorkers. Two of the founders had no experience selling beverages. Lenny Marsh and Hyman Golden were brothers-in-law who were in the window washing business. The third founder, Arnie Greenberg, ran a health food store. Together, they started the Unadulterated Food Products Company.
The story of how Snapple got its name goes back nearly a quarter of a century ago. The original owners created an apple soda that had so much fizz in it that it snapped inside the bottles. But they still had to buy the rights to the name, and for that, they paid a grand sum of $500.
From that investment, Snapple grew to become a pioneer in the alternative beverage business. Its early success coincided with a wave of consumer interest in health foods. Snapple was the first company to use glass bottles and hot pack technology, allowing it to stake its all-natural claim.
They affected the first real mainstream hot fill production process for Snapple, which killed any microorganisms in a drink and allowed the original makers of Snapple not to put preservatives in the product, which virtually all other beverages had at the time. And so that was a breakthrough.
By the early 1990s, Snapple had gone beyond basic teas to selling more than 50 kinds of exotic fruit blends. And it was no longer regional. National marketing and advertising helped create the image of a brand that was down-to-earth, offbeat, and fun. There were Snapple fan clubs, Snapple conventions. Snapple drinkers were cool because they drank, quote, the best stuff on earth. And consumers weren't the only ones who thought Snapple was cool. So did Quaker Oats, who acquired it at the end of 1994 for $1.7 billion.
The new owners had different ideas for selling Snapple. They cut back on advertising at a time when Snapple was getting its first serious competition. As a result, by summer 1995, sales of Snapple were down dramatically from the previous year. Also, based on its experience selling Gatorade, they wanted to introduce new sizes of Snapple. But the experiment was not a success. Mike Weinstein was CEO of Snapple in the post-Quaker Oats years.
I think they thought that, well, it was a beverage, people would view it the same, but the products are really so different and the reasons people buy them. Gatorade is a large volume, high thirst occasion drink, and Snapple's just a fun treat. So they thought, gee, when we put Gatorade into 32 ounce and 64 ounce, it was a big success. We'll do the same with Snapple, not realizing people only wanted to drink 16 ounces of Snapple.
Snapple drinkers also had grown accustomed to expecting new flavors every year. But when Quaker Oats took over, Quaker cut the number of Snapple varieties from 50 to 35. But the most damaging move was Quaker's switch from using Snapple distributors to a warehouse system.
There was an interesting lesson that they learned, which was the distribution system is really important to these products. They decided they were going to try to do a Gatorade-like distribution system and go through the warehouse rather than through these direct store-door delivery distributors.
In 1996, Quaker poured $40 million into a national campaign intended to revive Snapple. It featured Snapple giveaways, promotions, and commercials. Even with all these efforts, Snapple and Quaker continued to free fall. By the end of the year, sales had dropped 8%. Losses were over $100 million, and the brand had lost nearly 5 points in market share. In March 1997, the Triarch Beverage Group, owners of Mystic, RC Cola, and Diet Right Cola, bought Snapple for $300 million. Mike Weinstein was CEO of Triarch's Beverage Group and would take over as Snapple's CEO. His job was to lead the reinvention of Snapple, a new Snapple that was more like the old Snapple.
It was reconnecting with the consumer. That was a critical part to make sure that they got reconnected with Snapple. And Quaker had fired Wendy, who was the advertising spokesperson. They had fired Howard Stern, who was one of the icons on radio who originally developed the brand, and Rush Limbaugh had been fired. So we hired them all back.
The company went all out to create new flavors and new drinks. Among the winners was a smoothie that capitalized on the original Snapple characteristics of fun, health, and quirkiness.
Whippersnapple was an idea that probably saved the company when we brought it back. It was a rallying idea for the industry. The fact that the new owners could put out something so creative and so unique in such a fast period of time, it made everybody come back to the Snapple franchise. From the system standpoint, it also brought consumers back to the franchise.
And had a swirly bottle, and we tried to position it as a smoothie, which was an interesting lesson because we learned that consumers position brands ultimately, not marketers. So while we positioned it as a smoothie, when the consumer looked at it, they saw a kid's drink because it was in a small package, and it became really popular among young kids.
Snapple also brought to market Snapple Elements, herbal fruit and tea drinks with the names Fire, Moon, Sun, and Earth, and a line of energy or sport drinks called Snapple Hydro. A $30 million media and marketing plan brought back the Snapple lady, Wendy.
Snapple, made from the best of Mother!
There were product placements in top TV shows like Seinfeld and Chicago Hope.
Show me, Babble!
Snapple?
We believe that sometimes where your message was received affected how people perceived your brand, because if you were just on mainstream television, on the networks, running commercials, even if they were unique, people would see them as part of a show that Coke and Pepsi advertised on. So we used to run ads in the personal columns, and it would say, you know, man desperately seeking Diet Peach iced tea, and we'd look for unusual advertising vehicles. There was a company that had a machine that put your logo in the sand on beaches in the morning. So you know how when you go in the morning and they rake the sand and the first people on, it's very neat. So you'd walk onto the beach and there'd be Snapple logos. We actually had flip-flops that had a cutout on the bottom that had the Snapple logo. So when you walked on the beach, you left logos on the beach.
And the company went back to its original system of distribution.
Biggest challenge, I think, was rallying the system back. When I say the system, I mean the people who sold Snapple, the distribution system, as well as the trade, rallying them back to the point where they would take a chance on Snapple again. So winning that positive attitude back was the most important step.
If they decide they're going to sell more Snapple and less of another product they're carrying, it can move the needle very quickly. So within 6 months, the brand went from -20 to a flat. And then we introduced the new products and new promotions. And I think the first year number was +8% in volume, which was the first time the brand had grown in 5 years.
By 1999, Snapple was firmly on its way back. Sales were up 14% in the second quarter. Snapple was once again the leading new age brand. The New York Yankees, winners of that year's World Series, named Snapple Iced Tea its official team iced tea. Snapple also launched a website. The next year, Triarch spun Snapple off as a separate business unit, preparing it to go public. But the IPO never happened. In September 2000, Cadbury Schweppes bought Snapple for $1.45 billion, adding it to a portfolio of 5 other beverages. Today, the best stuff on earth is concocted in the R&D lab of Snapple's White Plains headquarters, where the latest products are on display, and where flavorists, as inventors of new drinks are called, mix and match colors and scents in precise formulas. Snapple's latest advertising campaign has no celebrities, but makes the drinks the stars in their own little stories.
Snapple just needs to continue to keep up with the times without losing its personality of being quirky and fun. So they have to find a way to translate its personality into appropriate products of the future.
The story of Snapple is about a brand that skyrocketed into American culture, lost its way, and then found itself again. It's a comeback that speaks to the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. For the Pearson Video Library, I'm Alice Look, Business Now.